Yay.
It's Friday, man. The end of the first week of 2023, and we are rolling.
It's hard to believe it's Friday. I mean, it was like, what happened? Bang. Quick week. A lot of, working out the kinks, shaking off the rust. But yesterday I got right back in it, and super exciting. The EVP for Tao Hospitality introduced me to his New York team. And he said, I just want to throw it out there that if this works, we want to take you global. And I was like, way to light my fire, brother.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bill Bondbrest and his team, and shout out to Scott Hyman for that wonderful referral. If you don't believe that referrals work, talk to us.
There's a process for it, and we teach it inside of the Modern Business Development module. But I had a great call with Steve Felsen yesterday from Home Franchising Concepts. So like working with them to help develop content. Like I took him through our platform and what we do and how we do it. And that led to a really good conversation of, okay, what does customization look like? What does it look like for us to merge the philosophies and the concepts that you guys teach with what we teach and how we do it, and then develop a platform where we're able to train the trainers and really scale it to where it's not you guys that are delivering it, but it's us that's delivering it. So excited to be working with them and excited to get the feedback from him, and just continue to move forward with those guys.
That company is actually, they have 9 franchise groups.
Correct.
They're actually owned by JM Family, which
I didn't know that.
Keeping it home, baby.
I did not know that. It's awesome.
Getting into JM Family world's not going to be a bad thing. So, pretty exciting stuff. I think that there's a misnomer, and we'll go through this next week, about what the platform is capable of. Where we were with just flat
videos. There was a place to house videos is what was there.
Where we were to this whole interactive playground. It's just fascinating. And so you can't really know it until you see it. And I spent most of my day yesterday talking to people who want demos, and, because I think people have an appetite for learning. And you will hear today from Jay Katari, who is, just the coolest entrepreneur I know.
I'm pumped about the new segment. I'm pumped about it being Friday and us bringing in the Huddler in the Hot Seat segment. But before we can do any of that, we have to wake up, correct?
Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed.
Couple of things before we get going. When you watch the wake up reel, there's a lot of smiles. It is really cool, even for me to watch, because we don't really see ourselves necessarily. So,
I love that it's part of the rules about smiling. And I love the fact that entrance is all smiling, because that brings the energy for the show. I love it.
Second thing before we get to Jay, because it's going to be really cool. You have to talk about DeMar waking up, has most of his neurological features, can't talk yet, but
was able to write.
First thing he wrote down:
did we win?
Did we win?
Did we win, man?
I make this shit up, man.
To me,
Coca-Cola commercial.
To me, that speaks volumes to the kind of people that McDermott has created, or that, has brought into that organization, the people that he has playing, and if there were any questions about whether or not they should play the game or whether or not the game should go on, I think that answers all of it. You saw a guy who's just committed to his teammates, committed to the cause. And for him, the first thing for him to be worried about was, did we win? And the doctor's response was, you won in the game of life.
Yeah,
So, really great stuff.
Cash in your chips, brother, man. It's all good.
Exactly.
So,
Greg
I will
Goldstein
let
said that
you
exactly.
steer this next segment. It's a new one. It's going to be
so you've got morning wake up music that also happens to be Jay Katari's walk up music. So we are going to play morning motivational music. We will come back. We will introduce the Huddler in the Hot Seat segment, and then we will bring on Jay.
The reason why I picked this music is it absolutely describes this dude.
Let's go.
Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing. No, no. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing. No, honey. I've got your picture hanging on the wall, but it can't see or come to me when I call your name. I realize it's just a picture in a frame.
Ooh, I read your letters, and you're not near, but they don't move me, they don't move me like when I hear your sweet voice whispering in my ear.
Don't you know? Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real.
Shay, it is now time
Real
for Huddler in the Hot Seat. Come on. I love it. Jay, welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good morning to you, sir. Beautiful background, beautiful backyard, beautiful day. And Dad, the music that you chose for Jay could not have been any more perfect because to me,
So let me give just a little background.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know Jay a long time. And one of the problems with entrepreneurs is that they think they need to be full of shit. They think they need to tell you more than what's actually happening. In my entire time knowing him, good or bad, he shares it, which makes him an unbelievable huddler. So.
and I think in the realm of people and meeting people, when you meet somebody for the first time, you know you either met a real person or you met somebody that was full of shit. And to me,
Right.
when I met Jay and we had our conversation, I was like, that dude is the real deal.
Yeah.
So super excited to have you on the show, Jay. Thanks for being here.
So
Thank
why
you.
don't we start out? First question is, talk to us about the huddle.
The huddle, what you guys do is it's so rare. I mean, you come out every morning. I just look at it like 20 minutes of the Howard Stern of business and life. Like you guys have something new every time. I think it's beautiful that you have these father-sons relationships. I think it's incredible. So I just love watching it. I'm sort of in Jewish they say it gives me great nachas to see what's going on. I mean, the pride is incredible. So I love that you're doing it, and I watch it every morning. So it's great.
Well,
Mark,
thank
take
you.
over.
Yeah, so Jay, give everybody the Cliff Notes version of your story. My first question that we're going to lead into is what led you to becoming an entrepreneur. But before that, give everybody your background, where you grew up, how you got to where you are, the things that are important to you.
Well, I grew up in in Hamilton, Ontario, a steel city of Canada. Moved here at 17. My dad lost everything financially. We moved to Florida when I was 17. I did my last year of high school, did 6 months of high school without my parents here because they had to move me first. And I lived on my own at 17, not like, horribly. I wasn't in the streets, but that was, and then,
Where did you move to?
I didn't have any guidance, went to Broward Community College, got an associate's degree after almost 3 years. That's how bad I was at school. And then I went to Florida State for 1 year and figured out that school wasn't for me. And then I figured out, because I'm not good at school and I'm not going to get a degree, I better be an entrepreneur. So that was it. I think entrepreneurs are people that aren't good at typical stuff, and that's and so I'm unemployable is what the way
That's my dad's favorite way to describe being an entrepreneur. Well, explain to people a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. So, like, you went to Florida State, which, by the way, most people who go to Florida State find out the school's not for them because there's just way too many extracurriculars going on. But so then what did your entrepreneurial journey look like?
Oh, to say it quickly, I would say at Florida State, my dad was in the used clothing business, exporting and stuff like that. So I went to the Salvation Army there, and as a student, and I said, hey, do you have this stuff that you sell to people overseas? He's like, yeah, why do you want to know? And I'm like, well, I'd like to buy it. He goes, you're a kid. Like, what do you mean? I said, no, I'm going to buy it. And so I made a deal with the guy to buy it for $2,000 a truckload. I called up my dad and I said, Dad, I found this supplier. He's willing to sell it to us for $5,000 a truckload. And he goes, oh, that's great. We could sell it for $8,000 a truckload. I'll tell you what, I'll give you half the profit. I said, that's very generous. Because I knew my dad was going to screw me on the margin. So I was smart enough, I guess.
Built in your own profit. I love that.
So I was doing that. I was making like $6,000, $7,000 a month at 20 years old at Florida State, working 2 days a month. And my friends are like, what are you doing here? You make more money than the teachers. Get out of here. And so I quit and I went and I worked for my dad. I learned a lot of the things to do, a lot of the things not to do, met a lot of great people along the way. And I learned, I learned how to hustle. I mean, I was just learned how to hustle, grinding it out. That was what I learned how to do in that instance. And then from there, I got married at 23 years old to my beautiful bride, who I'm still married to 25 years later.
Congratulations.
And I went into the thrift store business because I wanted to have something domestic and not be shipping overseas and be a slave to currencies and social unrest and political unrest. And I got into that. Got up to having 10 retail stores, 20,000 to 40,000 square foot stores. We employ about 350 people. And then as I was doing that, I decided we have a son with autism, and my wife and I wanted to try our hand at running a therapy center for kids with autism. And we failed miserably in the first year trying it, and we're losing tons of money and couldn't figure it out. We figured it out, turned a corner. And, the short story is, because of solving a problem for our son, we now have 5 centers and about 200 kids and 250 employees in that business. And it's thriving. So I learned that I wasn't just a used clothing guy. I was a entrepreneur until I made the pivot and did something totally different. I didn't know that I wasn't an entrepreneur. I wasn't a business guy. I was just a schmata salesman. And I found out that I actually could do other stuff. So
you don't give yourself enough credit. Was that where you really understood that there were parallels that went across industry or across niche, that the fundamentals to being successful inside of a business were the fundamentals, regardless of whether it was a thrift store or a therapy center?
Great question. So I would say that the fundamentals, it's always about the people. Always. It doesn't matter what business you're in. As long as there's people in the business, you make it about the people. That's really what I think my strength is, connecting with people in a very short period of time with authenticity. That's what it's all about. People that think that they're just selling widgets, it's bullshit. You need to connect people to it, because they can buy their widgets anywhere. Why buy it from me? So that was, I think, the one. And the other thing is, know your numbers. Got to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you're dead. And I think people get so caught up in the process of, I'm going to be the greatest autism place in the world. But if you don't know your numbers, you have to, when I look at a space, I'm like, whether it's a thrift store or whether it's a therapy center, how many bodies can I put in the building? How much shit can I sell out of the building on a daily basis? Is it scalable? And then will there be a value proposition at the end? Or is this just a money-making machine where I eventually have to give it to my son or find someone to run it, and making those decisions along the way?
Did that understanding come from the thrift store journey? Like I'm assuming there were some struggles that came along first before you realized, okay, it really is just this basic about what's the cost here, what can we really produce, and what's the margin going to be?
So the first thing is any business that I've gone into has been a freaking nightmare. Like anyone who thinks they're going to hang a shingle and be successful day one,
Right.
not going to happen. I mean, go in expecting to get destroyed and your soul be crushed. That is the expectation for the 18 months of pure hell eating spaghetti. That is opening up a business. And so that was my experience in the thrift stores. That was my experience in the therapy centers. It's having that stay in power, the ability, the grit to stay in is really what is a defining factor. All the rest of it's the same, it's numbers. But I think that it was when I looked at the business, is it scalable? Is it recession proof? Is the payer durable? Is the customer base going to be sticky? Is it a sticky customer base? All those fundamentals. But I think the biggest thing that I did, which is why I watch you guys, and is you have to find your tribe. Right. And your tribe of people that you can ask questions to that aren't going to fuck you for asking the question and take advantage of that and tear open the sore. So I joined YPO, and there's Vistage, there's the Nudelbergs, there's all these different groups. I don't say one, you need more than one. Correct. But you meet a Nudelberg, he'll introduce you to a group. You meet YPO, they'll introduce you to Nudelbergs. It's like that kind of thing. And that was like, I love playing up. I want to play if I'm in the farm league, I want to play in the professionals and get my ass beat. That's how I learn. So I always play up, and I don't get embarrassed for saying, what does that mean? Because I didn't go to college for very long. I don't know what half the words mean that people are saying. What's EBITDA? What is that? Is that a word? Is that is it an acronym?
Do I eat that EBITDA? Is that
EBITDA? It's like
I love that.
So yeah, so it's all those are all the things. Just be humble, be willing to say I don't know I don't know. What does that mean? And be around people that I believe are better than me. Those are the people I want to be around.
In a short amount of time, you've dropped like an unbelievable amount of nuggets for people, but I want to kind of decipher some of it. And I think, you have so much experience and you have so much perspective. If there was one thing, one habit, one character trait that you could tell people that would help them be successful, what's the one thing you would tell people to focus on?
I would focus on the headwinds.
What does that mean?
What it means is focus on the struggles. If I think every great business was created by solving a problem. Yep. And I think that the problems, the ones who can overcome adversity and the problems that are out there for all of us, whether it be not finding employees, whether it be a high interest debt, whatever it is, focus on that and say, okay, if you can solve that problem, all the other stuff is easy. We've already got all that solved. Focus on the problems that are ahead of you. Be proactive. Be like the Chinese. Be looking 5 years, 15 years out. Don't be looking 5 days out.
Do you feel like that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me say this. So what's really fascinating is that you wanted to develop a solution to a problem that was your problem, not a problem in society. You felt it, so money didn't matter. Money wasn't the driving force. You had passion to do it for you. And if you could do it for you, in turn, you could do it for others, which is what humanity is about. So when you think of all of the great inventions and all of the things, they are lifestyle changes, all the great entrepreneurs that have done stuff, Steve Jobs made it easier for us to listen to great music and catalog it. You've made it so that, listen, I worked with the Dan Marino Foundation for years. They raised a shit ton of money, but there was really no solution to, how do you work with a child that has autism? And it's a big fucking deal, man. It's, as you and I have shared, it ain't an easy solution. So you are providing something that is so key and so instrumental to people bettering their lives. That's where I think, real entrepreneurs live. And you're a shining example of that.
No, I appreciate that. And that is, well, I think if we're solving a problem that matters to me, if I'm solving a problem that matters to me, I'm going to take it really seriously and my heart is going to be in it. And I agree with you 100%. I didn't know the jackpot that I jumped into when I got into this field. When my son was diagnosed, it was 1 in 150 kids. Now it's 1 in 42. It's 1 in 42 now, 10 years later. The state of California is predicting by 2030, 1 in 4 children will have autism. And there's going to need to be companies providing these services. So I didn't know that I think that, I'm a spiritual guy. I think you do good things in the world, you get good things back. So that's the other thing is go out there. If someone wants advice, someone needs help, help them. You never know what you're going to get just by helping someone else. My advice is free, and you pay what it's worth, free. So, but that's the way I look at it. I'm always happy to help someone because you get so much back.
So, I mean, you talked about don't expect to hang a shingle and be successful. You've dealt with a ton of adversity and you look for that problem to solve and anticipate it. Do you have a process for dealing with, you talked to us about some of the adversity you were dealing with currently. When shit hits the fan, how do you deal with it? What's your process for dealing with it in order to overcome it?
Well, I mean, it's again, going to your tribe. No one person knows everything. It's going to a group of people. And even if their responses are stupid because they really don't understand the question or whatever it is, that's fine, because someone is going to say something that's going to be that aha moment where it's going to pull that thing out of me that I had in there the whole time that I can use to succeed. And I mean, the number one problem that is moving by 2030, 50% of the workforce is going to be over 40.
Wow.
Now, that being said, we have a looming massive problem where we're not having enough babies. There's not going to be enough people to do the jobs. How are we solving that? Technology? What are we doing? Are we importing people? How are we doing this? Because that is the guy who solves that problem is going to be the one who's going to be the most successful. So I'm thinking of that right now that's the number one problem that exists today. It's nothing else. It's that.
I mean, you're making me tingle talking about this, because I think you and I talked about this.
Wait a minute. Does that mean you want to make babies?
Make some babies.
I think we had this conversation, right? It's about the development of people. Like, you talked a lot about process. You talked a lot about numbers. You talked a lot about people. That was, to me, the biggest miss that I saw when I came out of sports and got into business, was that there's no system, there's no process. People really don't understand how to train and develop the cognitive and physical abilities of people. And so that, to me, was like, as I wanted to get into coaching with my dad and it was figuring out how to coach business professionals, it was like, how do we create a system then? How do we create something that isn't reliant on a good leader and a good human teaching somebody how to do these things, but build the system that allows somebody to walk into it to go, okay, I can watch, I can retain, I can apply, I can practice, and I can do all these things within this system. Because, as you said, the less people we have, the less good leaders there's going to be, and the less good leaders are, the less development that's going to happen.
Everything you're saying is true. And the mindset that we have to get into as entrepreneurs and leaders is that they don't work for us. We work for them. And that is the thing. Like I have between all the different companies, 1,500, 1,800 employees, and I'm working for them every day. I need to listen to them. I don't need to be their bitch,
Right.
and they don't need to be my bitch, but I need to listen because I serve them. Otherwise, they're not going to do the job anymore. They can go anywhere to get a job right now because it's a buyer's market. It's a seller's market. Sorry, for the employee. And that's something that we have to, like, you don't go and tell someone what to do. You ask them. It's different today than it was 20 years ago.
When I grew up,
And that's something where, and that's one of the reasons where I don't know if I'm even like my age group. We're the age group of you do it because you're asked to do it.
You're
don't
told
do it.
to.
You don't need a goddamn reason.
Don't ask why. What do you mean why? It doesn't matter why. Do it because I said so.
Right.
Bless my grandfather's soul. That's the way he taught me. I'm not asking you. You get paid. Do the job.
Right.
Oh, you want a pat on the back? Fuck you.
Well, now they have choices. Like that's the thing. Like even our kids. I'm like, hey, can you go outside and take the trash out? Why?
Right.
Freaking Thursday, dude. It's trash day. And it's like, why don't you do it? And this is the kind of thing that we're up against with our employees. It's the same thing. They're not employees anymore. They're team members. It's a family. It's all these things. And it's got to be authentic, but that's the reality of what we're up against. So you solve the employee dilemma, the employee, I call them headwinds, which is a nice euphemism for problems in the future.
I love that.
You solve those things and you have the key to success. And that is the biggest single problem we have is the attitude and the lack of people for the future. Solve it and you'll have something successful.
Sounds like a mic drop to me.
Yeah, that was Jay. You set the bar so high for the Huddler Hot Seat. We're not going to be able to get anybody to say yes to the next segment. Like, I'm not following Jay. Are you kidding? Like, really well done. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being part of this tribe, man. We're very appreciative.
I love what you guys do. Keep doing it.
Great stuff. Great end to the week. Thank you, Jay. Thank you to the Huddlers for being a part of the first week of 2023.
Who's next?
Who is next? We are still waiting to figure out who's going to be next week's guest. If you are interested in coming on the show, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Otherwise, we will be reaching out to you.
Or otherwise, Jay will be back next Friday.
Jay might deserve his own segment. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I would love to have Bill Bondbreast. He's the executive VP at Tao. I mean, when you look at their website and see all of the restaurants, Jay, you've been at Tao before.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tao, Hakkasan.
Is that part of the is that Grutman Group?
No, this is they're
whole
based
other
in
thing.
New York, actually just bought by Madison Square Garden.
Wow,
So this is big time global. It'd be cool to have him on, but lots of cool stuff.
Bill, will you come on the show next Friday? That's the question to you. Bingo. Bill will be the Huddler in the Hot Seat next week. I like this. We might do this at the end of every Huddler Hot Seat segment, throw it out to the audience and see if we can get somebody to bite. So great job. Excellent end to the week. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday. Let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down